Hey everyone, it's Julie from Quilted Desires. If you're a beginner quilter or sewist looking for a quick, fun and versatile project, you're in the right place. Today we're making the Patch It Up Table Runner, a beginner-friendly design based on the classic 16 patch block. This table runner is made using strip sets of 2.5-inch fabric paired in contrasting colors to create eye-catching patterns. The best part, it's completely customizable. I've created versions for Christmas and also Halloween, but it works beautifully for any season or occasion. So whether you're looking to add a handmade touch to your table decor or just want to practice your piecing skills, this project is perfect for you. Grab a copy of the free pattern. The link for that is in the description box below, and your favorite fabrics, and let's patch it up together. The Patch It Up Table Runner is based on a 16 patch block design. So to make that, you'll need 2.5-inch strips. You can use a jelly roll if you wish. I've just grabbed some pre-cut strips from my stash, and I'm also using Glisten by Patrick Lowe's. You'll also need your 1/4-inch sewing foot and general sewing supplies. Our table runner is made up of 3 strip sets, and in each strip set we have 2 different fabrics. We have 4 strips, so we have 2 strips of our main fabric and 2 strips of our coordinating fabric, and we'll just set them out in an alternative pattern so that we have 1 main, 1 contrast, 1 main, 1 contrast, just like that. We're going to start with 2 fabrics, and we'll place those right sides together and we'll sew them with a 1/4-inch seam. And once that's done, we'll repeat the process of putting our pairs together. We'll take our strip sets over to the ironing board and we'll set the seam just by placing our iron on top of the seam line just here. So we'll just press along that seam line, and then we'll flip the strip set open and continue to press, and that will give us a nice crisp seam just here. So we'll continue to do that all the way along, and we'll do that with both strip sets. Now we'll place our strips of 2 together, right sides together, and we'll sew those together with a 1/4-inch seam. Now we'll take that over to the iron and press the seams. Let me show you a quick way of cutting your strip sets. So all you do is you place one on top of the other and line up the top edge of one of your strip sets with the joined edge of the other, so it just sits under there neatly. And if you line it up all the way along, you can then use your ruler to cut your strip sets 2 at a time. So this just saves a little bit of time. You don't have to do it this way. I'm just going to trim the selvages off. And then I will line up my 2.5 inch mark on my ruler with the edge of my fabric. And I'll cut my strip sets. After cutting our strip sets into 2.5 inch increments, we should have 16 of these, which we will then match up into 8 pairs. We'll take our 8 pairs over to the ironing board now and give them a press. I like to press at every stage because it just keeps the seams nice and neat. You don't have the hassle and headache then of taking a whole big project over to your iron to iron it. We'll just continue doing this until all of our pairs are pressed. The next step is to take all of our pairs and match them up into blocks of 4, again alternating the direction between the pairs and nesting the seams as you go. And you'll do that until all of your pairs are sewn. Again, we just take this over to the iron and give those seams a press. Now that you've got 4 blocks completed, you can go ahead and repeat this process with the other strip sets, turning those each into 4 blocks per strip set. Once our blocks are complete, they should measure 8 inches square. Now, if you would like to, you can take those over to your cutting board and you can just trim those back to 8 inches. And once that's done, we'll come back and we'll start the arrangement for our table runner. The arrangement of your blocks is totally up to you. One word of advice when you're setting out your blocks though is to make sure that all the seams are running in the same direction, because when you want to put them together, you want them to nest again, just like we did before with one of the seams going to the left and one of the seams going to the right. So it's quite easy for you to mix them up and have them some running vertically and some seams running horizontally. But if you can, just keep in mind that you really do want them all running vertically so that we can have those seams nested. I think I'm going to put mine in a red, pink, green kind of scheme and just repeat that. And then start with the pink one on that side, and then the green, and then the red for the next row. And then once you're happy with your arrangement and all of your seams are running vertically, you can start to put your blocks together by just placing the first ones right sides together and making sure that your seams are nesting. We'll bring our top over now to the ironing board and we'll give it a final press. So just setting that seam. And then opening out and giving our table runner a press. Now the reason why we press our fabrics as opposed to ironing our fabrics is because when you iron the fabric, you can stretch it out of shape. So if you just move your iron across and press, you have less chance of stretching your fabric and having it go out of shape. And now all that's left is quilting and binding. The finished size of your table runner at this point will be 16 inches by 46.5 inches. Now to quilt that, you'll need a piece of fabric for the back, which is 20 inches by 51 inches. You'll also need a piece of wadding or batting, which is 20 inches by 51 inches. You'll need some basting spray or pins, and you'll need your walking foot. Now for binding, you'll need 10 inches, which is for 2.5-inch strips. Let's go ahead and start the quilting of our table runner. What I want to do first is roughly mark the halfway points of the wadding just by putting some pins in. I do this because I want the top centered on the wadding and the backing. And this is just a really simple way of doing that. Just popping the pins in those halfway points on both the length and the width. Okay, so now I'm just going to lay the wadding down. And I'll place my backing on top. Matching up the halfway points of the backing with the halfway points of the wadding. Once you're happy that it's in the right spot, thereabouts, just give it a smooth down. To get all the wrinkles out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel my backing back to the halfway point, and I'm going to spray my wadding with some basting spray. And I'm going to work from the middle towards the outer edges. Just giving it a smooth down as I go along. Watch the pins. Ouch. It's probably a good time to take those pins out. And then we'll turn it around and we'll do exactly the same thing and peel the backing back towards the middle. And basting with the basting spray or pins. The good thing about basting spray is that you can pick your fabric up and reposition it if you need to. So we're just going to flip that over now and we'll lay our top on top. Our top on top. And again, just roughly matching up those halfway points. And we'll repeat that process of peeling the top back to the middle and basting and then smoothing out. If you are using basting spray, just make sure that you're in a well ventilated area. Using an erasable marker and a ruler, I'm just going to mark some really basic quilting lines. And I'm going to go diagonally across my table runner. You can do straight line quilting if you want to. You can also practice your free motion quilting if you'd like. It's totally up to you how you want to quilt your table runner. So now we can just take that to the sewing machine and we can start our quilting. Before you start quilting, don't forget to put your walking foot onto your machine. Now that we're ready, we want to start at the middle of our table runner and work our way towards the outer edges. So making sure that your table runner is nice and flat and you don't have any puckers. You can then start your quilting. At this point, I like to change the stitch length to about 3 and my stitch width is still 3.5. So very slowly following that line that you've drawn as a guide. There is our first line. Now we just want to continue to quilt the rest of our table runner. To prepare our binding, we're going to take all 4 of our strips and sew it together into one big long strip. So we want to take 2 strips first of all and have one running horizontally, and we'll have another one running vertically, and we'll place those 2 right sides together. And we'll pop a pin in from the top right hand side to the bottom left hand side, and then we'll pop that under the needle and we will sew from the top left to the bottom right, diagonally across the pin that we've just put in. So trim the edges back to 1/4 of an inch. And then repeat this same process with the other 2 strips. So when you fold that out, it has a nice miter to it. So this is what our binding now looks like. I've pressed it in half horizontally so that I have one folded edge and the other two raw edges are meeting. Now for today, I'm going to attach the binding by machine. So I'm going to pop it on the back first and then flip it over and machine stitch it down on the front. Now if you wanted to hand stitch your binding, then you would need to attach it to the front first and then flip it over and hand stitch it down. But just for today, I'm going to show you how to attach it by machine. So first things first, we're going to, I like to find the middle of the longest edge of my project and start there. And I'm going to leave about a 5.5-inch tail to start off with. And then I'm just going to pop a pin in here and I'm going to attach the binding to the back with a 1/4-inch seam. When I come up to the first bottom edge, I'm going to stop a 1/4 inch from that bottom edge, and with my needle in the down position, I'm going to rotate my table runner 45 degrees, pop my needle down, and I'm going to sew directly into the corner. And this will give us a nice crisp binding. So from there, snip the threads, fold your binding up and then back down on itself, and then pop it back under the machine, start a 1/4 inch from the edge and reverse back, and then begin sewing all the way down to the next corner. When we reach the next corner, I'll zoom in and I'll show you that process close up. Okay, so I have stopped a 1/4 inch from the bottom edge. My needle is down. I'm going to lift my foot up, rotate the project so that it's on a 45-degree angle. Pop my presser foot down again and then sew into the corner. I'll take it out, snip the threads, fold the binding up, make a crease, bring it back down on itself, and then start a 1/4 inch from the edge, sew up to the top edge and then back down. And then continue sewing until you get to the next corner and then repeat that process. As we get back around to the beginning of our tail, we need to stop about 4 inches before we actually get to that tail. and take our project out and snip the threads. Now we want to join our two tails together. So we're going to take the left tail and place it on the right tail, and we're going to make a mark on the left tail, or the top tail, that is 2.25 inches from the edge of the right tail, or the bottom tail. So left tail goes on top of right tail, and we measure 2.25 inches from the right tail, and we make a mark on the left tail. And then we're going to snip the excess off at the mark that we made. So now we have two short tails, a left and a right. We're going to take the left tail, open it out and flip it up, and take the right tail, open it out and place it directly on top of the left tail. We'll take a pin and we'll pop it in the top left hand side and through to the right hand side, and then we will rotate our join 45 degrees so that the pin is now running right to left, top right, bottom left, and we're going to sew directly across the pin from left to right. So from one corner to the next, directly across the pin. So make sure all your pieces are flat before you start to sew. Try not to hit your pin. And then we'll snip the threads, and we'll first test that to make sure that we've got it right, because we don't want to snip those tails off unless we know that we've got our binding joined correctly. And yes, we have. So now we can snip the tails off, leaving a 1/4 inch seam. We'll finger press that seam open, and then we will continue to join the binding to the back of the table runner. Now we want to take our table runner over to the iron, and we want to press our binding to the front, just like that. Now that you've got your binding pinned to the front, we can go ahead and stitch that down with a 1/8 of an inch seam.